My wife is from Indianola, Mississippi, which is pretty small. Its main claim to fame is that it's the birthplace of blues legend B.B. King. We actually had our rehearsal dinner in the B.B. King Museum there. It's actually pretty sweet. It's a town nestled in the heart of the Mississippi Delta, and it's got a ton of sweet people and some even better food. The Crown is a must-visit spot that's been around since 1976. They do lunch and desserts in a small antique shop, and the dish you've got to try there is the Catfish Allison or Chicken Allison. We got approval from Miss Jennifer to share the recipe for Chicken Allison in case you can't make it to the Delta. Let me show you what makes this dish so incredible. Chicken Allison is made of tender chicken smothered in a super nutty, rich butter sauce. There are a couple of really cool techniques going on here that I'll walk you through. In my opinion, the Allison butter is the best part of this. It's easy to make and can be made way beforehand if needed. In a large bowl, add 1/4 cup of unsalted butter, that's half a stick, 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise, a half cup of grated Parmesan cheese, the green shaky cheese is best here, half a teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, and half a teaspoon of Tabasco. Season this with salt and pepper for good measure, and then we're gonna add about 1 to 2 green onions, super finely diced. I do this by taking the green onion and splitting them at the greens. I'm not sure if they use the white section in the restaurant, but I'm gonna leave them out here because they're a little bit sharper in onion flavor. Slice open one edge of the cylinder so that they can lay flat, and then you can cut them into a julienne. From there, you can cut them into a dice, and if needed, you can rock your knife over the pile to break them down further. If you don't want to do that, you can pretty much just slice them and then chop them down until they're pretty fine. One thing about the restaurant is you can't really see green onion in this, like you don't really notice that it's there, so I think it's important to be really fine with your cuts here. Something like this is perfect. The cool thing about this butter is just how well everything works together. As a list of ingredients on a page, it almost seems like it wouldn't work, but the magic happens when it browns under the broiler. It melts and becomes deeply brown and super flavorful. It's truly magic. For the chicken, I really like using chicken tenderloin for this. It's not usually my favorite cut, but they're perfect for this kind of treatment. They're first poached until just cooked and beautifully tender, and then they're covered in the butter we made and broiled. This is just a package of chicken tenderloin, a little over a pound. One thing I always do with tenders is remove the tendon that runs through the meat. It's like a rubber band that sits in the middle of the meat, and I don't like eating it, honestly. It's just not good, and I think this little step makes the world of difference. I basically treat this like silver skin, where I kind of cut into the meat so I can pull up the tendon, slide my knife under it, and then go one side to the other until the tendon is totally removed. It's really easy once you kind of see where it is, and you don't want to mangle the meat too bad, so don't go crazy with your knife here. If we want the chicken to taste delicious all throughout, we need the poaching liquid to be seasoned. So into a pot, add about 1 quart of water, 1 teaspoon of salt, a lemon just kind of sliced into rings, a few bay leaves, and then about a teaspoon of black peppercorn. If you've got any hard herbs lying around, just like thyme or rosemary, you could probably just throw that in as well. Bring this to a simmer and add in the prepped chicken tenders. These need about 5.5 minutes in the simmering water to cook, but not overcook. Remember, these are gonna be placed under the broiler, so if they're overcooked now, man, they're gonna be tough in the end. The chicken should look something like this. It's basically just, soft cooked chicken seasoned with the poaching liquid. Don't worry about the look though, it's gonna come together in the end, I promise. From here, we can now combine the tender poached chicken in the prepared butter. Place the chicken onto a sheet tray and apply a few spoonfuls of butter on top of each one. This butter is basically the perfect amount for a little over a pound of chicken tenders, so just be aware of that. You could easily double this recipe to feed like 5 people or so. These can head into the oven to broil, and I like the rack not all the way to the top, but like 1 rung below the top. Broil these until, quote, directly from the Crown's cookbook. The butter mixture has browned deeply, not lightly, unquote. We're looking for all of the delicious brown nutty flavor to come from this stage. You're gonna wanna check if your broiler's hot on one side. Mine is actually like hotter in the front than it is the back. So be sure to rotate the tray as you go. This right here is exactly what we're looking for. I just keep an eye on it to make sure it doesn't go too far, but this level of deep brown is perfect. The butter has melted and the Parmesan has browned really deeply. This sauce is going to taste so good. And if you're at the Crown, you've got to eat this with some rice. The rice soaks up all of that juicy, buttery sauce so well, and I've got a secret way to cook the rice that may just blow your mind. Or you're gonna hate me for even suggesting it. So the rice needs to be tossed in a little bit of butter for flavor, but the most important thing is the texture of the rice. The grains need to be fully separate and distinct. One of the best ways to get distinct granules like that is to cook the rice like pasta. I know, it's sacrilegious. This is 1 cup of medium grain rice, washed until the water runs clear. Don't worry, the rice is still washed at least, if that helps. Just place that into a big pot of boiling water that's seasoned like you would pasta. The trick here is to make sure that you've got way more water than rice. This isn't the time to really worry about water measurements. This is when you want to fill your pot as much as it can go. Boil your rice like that for around 12 to 15 minutes. Once it's tender, drain the rice and add it back into the pot with a big old knob of butter. Mix this together so the butter melts into the grains, and that's how you get super tasty rice that's got nice, distinct grains. The last thing to complete this meal is some brown butter green beans. I'll do this in one saute pan to make it as easy as possible. A cup of water and bring that to a simmer. Add in the beans. This is about just, a couple handfuls of green beans, cleaned and sliced into pieces. Cook these for about 4 to 5 minutes until nice and tender. Again, this is just where I take a piece and eat it, and if it's tender, it's great. I actually like to cook these more than usual. I don't really want them to be crunchy still. I want these to have a similar texture as canned green beans, because I think a great substitute to fresh green beans here is canned green beans. So if you can't get fresh, don't worry about it. Just use a drained 15-ounce can of green beans. Remove the cooked ones from the pan and place them in ice water to chill. This is gonna help them retain a little bit of that green color as they cook. Toss the water from the pan and begin melting about a tablespoon of unsalted butter until foamy. Continue cooking that until it browns really nicely and gets close to becoming burnt. Miss Evelyn, the owner of The Crown and author of the cookbook, talks about taking this butter basically one step down from burnt. So that's what you want to do here. Once right at that edge, take a little bit of lemon and squeeze that in. But I do want to warn you, it's going to splatter a bunch, so turn your heat down, or even better, turn the stove off. Don't splatter a bunch of hot butter onto your hand. You just want to be mindful of that. Mix that in and then add the beans back to the pan to heat through. Taste this one time for salt, and then one thing I don't have that The Crown always adds is black sesame seeds. It's really delicious. If you've got them lying around, add in some of those here too. With these beans done, we can build our Crown lunch plate. Now, it's pretty straightforward, but there's one important step you gotta do. The rice has to go down first. That way you can put the chicken on top of the rice and then douse it in the extra sort of buttery sauce that's in the pan. The rice is the vehicle in which you can consume so much delicious brown butter flavor. Coming from someone who's made a lot of sort of intensive dishes on their channel with lots of ingredients that potentially everybody may not have access to, I love this dish because anyone, anywhere in the US can make this. It's chicken, it's rice, it's a sauce, and it's green beans. They could even be canned green beans. The sum of all these ingredients is something really, really delicious and really special. I am so, so grateful for The Crown. We go to the Delta at least once a year, if not like twice a year. I think it's a really special place that's overlooked constantly.
Yeah, so The Crown in my hometown of Indianola, anytime I go home, it's one of the first places I need to go, like as soon as possible. I will always be eating Chicken Allison. I don't think I've ever ordered anything else. And you stay for the pie table and the coffee after. They have like a whole round table full of homemade pies that you can just graze from as much as you want. It's amazing. So one of my favorite memories of The Crown is in high school, we had like a free period, and by the time my friends and I were juniors and seniors, we would break away from school and go to The Crown and do like a late lunch. And it's not like a fancy place, but the food feels fancy, and to us it just felt like such a cool thing to get to do. Chicken Allison, this recipe obviously has rice in it, and for whatever reason, one of the most challenging things I've ever done in my life is try to eat Chicken Allison without getting a grain of rice on the table during the whole experience. To this day, I think maybe I've done it one time. My friends and I would like have a competition to see who could get the less rice off their plate by the time we finished eating. Make this dish, and I dare you to try and not get rice on the table as you're eating it. If you're like me, you probably won't succeed, or you might be better than me, and hopefully you'll actually accomplish it. Either way, let me know how you do. The Crown is a place I hope and wish everyone could experience, but because it's not likely that all of you will get to the Mississippi Delta at some point, make this dish and it'll give you a little taste of my hometown.
I know, it's scary on the chair.